Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliate subordinate ministries and or nonprofits. It's that time again. It's the happy hour with your host, Dr. Paul Collins, and his lovely wife, Nancy, bless her heart. Without any further ado, time to join in on the fun. Take it away, Dr. Paul.
All right, got my throat cleared, my eyes are clear, my hearing is pretty good with these earphones on, and it's Friday morning again. Comes around the same time every week. I like to remind you of that. Hello, Shirley Simpson. Bless your heart. A couple of days ago, you had a birthday, and you stay young always. How about that? Well, anyway, happy birthday, and hello to our ladies down there in Texas, two of our favorites, Judy Nickel and Galen Garrett, and our favorite former teenager who's now a retired school administrator over there in Chesterfield, Missouri, Jerry Chambers. And hello to Tammy Harris in Flora, Illinois, big city of Flora. And Tammy is a singer beyond compare. Great, great voice. Beautiful lady. She's a former Miss Chicago. That'll tell you something. And hello to Tammy. Tell your mama howdy. Tell Dolores I said howdy. Anyway, all of the other folks that listen to us up in Northwest Missouri, Northeast Missouri, Texas, Germany, France.
All around the world.
All around the world, Pakistan, etc. And hello to our good medical people, because we've been seeing them lately. By the way, yesterday day before yesterday, or was it yesterday? Day before yesterday, I saw Dr. Jamie Durfee, beautiful little lady, our medical doctor, our primary care physician. She's been a guest and is eager to come back and be with us as soon as they allow medical people to do such a thing. And then yesterday, I saw the dermatologist, Dr. Hope Misterovich, and have had some lab work done. And about a week ago, I saw a Dr. Garner. He's a guy that does pacemakers. And just before him, I saw the cardiologist.
You know, it might be nice. We could have Dr. Kewen, your cardiologist, and then if Dr. Garner's able, he'd come on.
Well, Dr. Kewen is eager to be a guest as soon as medical people are cleared up for that, and he's a great young cardiologist. He has placed 3 stents in coronary arteries for me without a hitch. No hitch and a get along. And if you could see now, I can still get along. And he highly recommends Dr. Garner, who's a young guy. All he does is pacemakers. And Garner told me the other day, in fact, Garner, I think, would be glad to come on. He said that he and Dr. Kewen had agreed that either one of them, if Kewen needed the pacemaker, Garner would do it. If Garner needs stents, Kewen would do it. And so we have a bunch of really good medical doctors. Folks, before we get into some serious stuff for the happy hour, here's something else kind of serious. We have some events coming up for Acts Ministry, for Acts Media Group, and we happen to have on hand the station manager here, who's our engineer today, Matthew Pearson. I call him Matthew Dillon Pearson, after old Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke days. Yeah. And so, Matthew, as Festus would call him, tell us a little bit about this Acts Fest thing, a little bit about this telethon and what's happening with that.
Great. Dr. Paul, well, we've got a telethon coming up, and it's coming up June 1st through the 5th. All right, now June 1st is going to be the day that we're all going to be getting prepared for this.
Okay.
But then it's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Okay, I see here on June the 2nd, which is a Tuesday, you're going to have Church and Ministry Music Competition.
Church and Ministry Music Competition.
And then you've got something else coming up. Going to have some pastors give 2-minute messages.
Yes.
Boy, you talk about a challenge, trying to get some preacher to hold it to 2 minutes. Dr. Whining
I'll
must
be putting
be
one of those in as well.
Dr. Whining must be kidding.
No, it doesn't have to be just pastors. Lay people can do it as well.
You're right. 2-minute messages. So
You got a 2-minute mini sermon that you want to give, or I guess you could call it a sermon. You could call it just a message,
call it a sermonette.
sermonette.
And ladies are welcome. All the
call it a
ladies out
sermony.
there. Huh?
Call it a sermony.
Oh, yeah, a sermony.
Sorry.
How clever you are. How clever.
Um,
Ordinarily, you're never clever.
Never clever ever.
Ever. Okay. Then you have some other stuff. They're going to have a sandwich
Wednesday,
contest.
yeah. That was a big deal of debate during the meeting.
Right.
We have the talent show contest on Wednesday, June 3rd.
Okay. Talent show. Yeah. Great.
Yes, and that's going to. There's up to 8 competitors. Now you can find all this information on axmediagroup.com.
Okay. Now, do they have a category for yodeling?
That falls under the talent show.
Oh, okay.
Not to be confused with the music competition.
Oh, well,
Tuesday.
when I yodel, it's music to my ears.
Wednesday, yodelay hee hoo. Huh? That's what I got.
Get your feet up.
Yeah.
Matt, it's getting deep in
Yeah.
here.
Too late
Like-
to save your shoes.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Yodelay e.
Yodel lady who?
Ah.
See, I told you I could yodel.
The best show or program contest. It's up to the show hosts to find these clips, or I guess I don't know if other people can submit other like other ones of our shows or not, but it could be a 1 to 3 minute clip of your favorite show. That's our shows here
Right,
on Axe
right.
Media Group.
Yeah, Axe Media Group shows.
$1 equals 1 vote on all of these competitions. By
Yes,
the way.
we don't want to forget. Everybody around the world can vote. $1 per vote, because after all, we're trying to raise some money to improve our technology and hours of operation. So
Yeah, and be sure and put under the item that is labeled 4 on you go to the donation PayPal button at axmediagroup.com, and under the item 4, like as in what is it for, kind of like the memo section, you put your voting selection.
okay, now
$1 equals 1 vote.
toward the end of the broadcast today, have your act together so you can run through again as a reminder to folks about this telethon coming up. In the meantime, we don't want to forget the sandwich competition.
They misspelled it, I think.
Yeah, they did. It is not Springburg.
Springburg.
It's Springburg.
Like iceberg.
B-U-R-G. Springburg.
Springburg Sandwich Saint Competition.
That's right. I named it.
Well, you and we had an ongoing debate about that.
I know.
'cause I wanted it to be champ. I get the Saint thing. We should call it Sandwich or Songberg Sandwich Saint Champ or Champ Saint Competition.
Well, I've had enough of you for now. Just being reserved until later. What I decided to do today, and I don't know, we'll see if there's a trend. I would like, by the way, I am old Dr. Paul, and this is my sweet little Miss Nancy, my co-host. I would like to sort of turn today's program in the direction of information helpful regarding senior citizens. Now, don't go away. I don't care if you're just 18 years old. You live long enough, you become a senior citizen.
So they need to hear the information so that when they get to be our age, that it will not hit them in the butt
And
or the face.
and sweet little Miss Nancy tells it like it is. Also, they probably have members of their family who are senior citizens, or they're out in the business community in spite of the coronavirus, and they have to deal with senior citizens. In fact, it is entirely possible from the perspective of an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old that their 45-year-old medical doctor is a senior citizen. So it's all a matter of where your head is, but we all need to be aware of senior citizens because the United States has a lot of them, and there's a lot of them all around the world. And I like to look at it this way. When you're in grade school, you graduate to high school. You finish high school, you graduate to college. You finish college, you graduate to the workforce. When you're a senior citizen, there's one graduation left, you graduate to heaven. I'm happy to report I'm still in class. I'm a slow learner, taking my time, but once I complete the lessons of life, I'll graduate to heaven. Now, isn't that a nice way to talk about senior citizens
Yeah,
and seniorhood?
yeah. You heard me talk about this before, and it still bothers me to this day because I do not remember when I was 11, 12, 13 on up. I do not remember anything for the most part that I learned from my mom and my dad. And when I was that age, whatever they were talking about did not interest me. And that is totally, totally, totally to the nth degree wrong. If I had had any brains at all, I would have been listening to what they were going through. Even if I did not understand, I should have been asking questions so that when I got older, say 19, 20, 21 on up, I would have had some understanding about some of the things that you might say you got hit in the face with, meaning they developed in your life and you didn't know what to do. Well, if I'd been listening to my mom and dad or whoever had some brains, I wouldn't have run into those situations.
Well,
that is the way
right.
it is now.
Okay, well, I have said many times you cannot hasten experience. I mean, life is lived one day at a time. So since your experience is limited, learn from the experiences of those who are older.
Yes, exactly.
For instance, we're losing our sense of history. Many, many, many of our young people, I'm sorry to say, you have not been real good history students, whether it's history of the United States or of the world or of your state or your community or of your church or of your faith. I want to remind you that yesterday was the anniversary of President Harry Truman, United States President, man from Missouri, from Independence, Missouri. He recognized Israel as a bona fide nation, and he was the first. And that's what made the difference. The world had to set up and take notice because the man from Missouri, Harry Truman, back in 1948, May 14th of that year, recognized the state of Israel. Also earlier this month, May the 7th, was the anniversary of the surrender of Germany in World War II. That was in 1945. And September the 2nd, coming up, 1945, we will observe the anniversary of the surrender of the Japanese Empire to the American forces, the Allied forces. That's all history stuff. And I am pleased to report that I lived that history. Having been born in 1935, I remember very well when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I remember seeing two older brothers go off to war, and a lot of neighbors and other relatives and so forth. And I've seen a lot of stuff. Now, Nancy, right now, our world is so involved in trying to cope with the so-called coronavirus or COVID-19 that history may be the last thing on somebody's mind, but folks, in spite of the coronavirus, life must go on. Now, we wore masks in today. I have hand sanitizer. They sanitize everything here between every show. That's one reason why we were just a little bit slow getting on the air this morning, and that's okay. And this building is being protected by limited entrance. In fact, there's a security person down there to make certain that the wrong people don't come in. And this building is equipped with a real good air filtration system. So we're doing our part best that we know how to take good care during the coronavirus. Now, Nancy, there's been much debate. You and I have seen it on television about the coronavirus in the news. I'm also seeing it online. I'm seeing on Facebook. There's a lot of people who still don't believe that this thing exists, and yet we know that people are dying, and we have a debate about how many have died or how many hasn't, and how serious it is compared to other sicknesses and flu and that sort of thing. Fact remains, we're dealing with semi-shutdown still, and social distancing, wearing masks at the right time, the right places, limited access to our medical people. So no matter what you think about the coronavirus, this is the world we're living in right now.
That's right.
Now, in the process of all of our focus being on the coronavirus, and believe me, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be focused on it. It's, in my mind, any kind of sickness that takes thousands of people out, it's a serious thing. We have to deal with it. Hopefully, we have scientists, medical people dealing with it in a superior way. And I don't know. I guess they are, because I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I just know that wherever I went yesterday to the dermatologist, I was checked. They checked my temperature on the way in. They asked all those questions, and if I'd had a fever, if I'd had a cough, and so forth. And the same thing when I went to get the lab work, the blood drawn, etc., at that facility. And day before yesterday, when I went to see the primary care physician, same thing. And Nancy, even though she had a mask and gloves, is not allowed to be in the waiting room in either of those places or any of those places. So that's the world. In the middle of that world, have we forgotten about Alzheimer's? That's a serious health threat. Please, in the middle of all of this concern, rightly concerned about the coronavirus, don't forget about Alzheimer's. Nancy, you and I will never forget that your mother, how she was when she had the full onset of dementia. We saw it coming on, and then how it manifested itself. And we look back on it now, and her mother, Willie Patrick, we called her Billy. Billy was as sweet and as cute as she could be with Alzheimer's, wasn't she?
Yeah. And when we put her in the nursing home, I remember I got a call. Nancy, your mama with purse in hand, always purse in hand, was walking to leave. She left the facility and she was walking down the street to go onto a very, very, very busy street. And of course,
She was going to walk home.
she was going to walk home. Yeah.
She always had her purse always clutched.
Yes, and that's when we were overseas. That's how she.
When you lived in Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
And Nancy's mom was a Texan. Nancy was born in Texas. Your dad may have been born in Kansas, but he grew up in Missouri, and then as an adult, he went to Texas to go to work. So they lived in Saudi Arabia because her dad worked for Aramco.
That's right.
And as a result of being with Texas Pole and Lantern, Texas Power and Light, and her mother was a school teacher. And her mother graduated with her teaching degree from North Texas State University. Anyway, Billy was sweet and precious, a real jewel. Even when dementia was coming on, we'd go by the house, and about every 2 minutes, she was up offering me more coffee. I'd say, no, I have enough, Billy. I still have some. Okay. She'd sit down. About 2 minutes later, she'd come over to my chair and say, Paul, can I get you some more coffee? And then it became chewing gum. Remember that? When she was always offering chewing gum.
Yeah.
And she held on to that purse. In fact, before the dementia came on, remember we'd go to a cafeteria here in Springfield as guests of your mom and dad to eat. That was their favorite place to eat. And your mom would start digging in her purse to get money to pay the bill. And your dad would say, Billy, I've got money. And she'd say, and she'd shake her finger. She'd say, Mr. Patrick, I have money.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to love the older people. You got to love us. It's a happy hour. Anyway, uh, so we saw your mom all the way to the end.
What was so awesome and neat is when she was dying, you might say, and of course that can go over a period of days, weeks, or months, but when it was toward the very, very, very last, when Mama really didn't have any memory, she may have responded to me, but I'm not sure she knew I was her daughter, which that was fine with me. But either my sister or I said something, and for a bare hair second, she remembered an Arabic word, which meant, that's very good. Wajid Zain, that's really good. And then it was gone. She never said it again.
That was an Arabic word.
That was an Arabic word.
See, isn't that interesting? I mean, you can even learn from folks who have Alzheimer's.
Yes.
But we need to continue our research in that. My sister, who I figured out last February would have been 98 years old if she was alive. I was with her. Her husband had passed away, and then later she and her first boyfriend, who was a widower, they met and they took up with each other again as sweethearts. And then I stood and at his casket after he died. I'd preached her husband's funeral, and then her first boyfriend, I preached his funeral. But I was standing with her at his casket, his open casket, and I said, "Sis, you had two good men in your life." She said, "Yes, and I love both of them." Well, after that, we were in her home, and we sat down at the kitchen table over coffee, and I said, "Now, sis, you notice what's happening to your memory?" She said, "Yes." I said, we know what's coming, and you need to start making some preparations." She had one child, a son, and I said, "You need to make certain your son has charge of everything while you are mentally able to handle it." And she took my advice. She did that, and it wasn't long until dementia hit her full blast, and she became real cute at the nursing home too. Her son at the time was a policeman, and he stood at her doorway of her room, and he was wearing his badge that had his name on it. And he looked in at his mom and he said, "Do you know who I am?" She looked up and read his badge. She said, "Yes." And she told what his name was. and then another time we were there, we looked for her. We couldn't find her in her room. She was in her neighbor's room, sitting there with a baby doll, rocking it and singing to it. I think that's the last time we saw her alive.
You know, one of the blessings, and this may not sound very nice to a lot of people, but I've dealt a lot with dementia and Alzheimer's. The blessing of those diseases is there's a time when they do not remember at all. Now, of course, for a family, that's terrible. They don't remember me. I would not want to bring somebody halfway out of a dementia state or Alzheimer's or whatever and have them see themselves as they are or are becoming or all the things they have forgotten. I would not want that. That's almost like a dignity issue.
Oh, it is a dignity issue.
And, oh my
Definitely.
goodness.
Well, we've dealt with Alzheimer's on both sides of our family, and we hope that in the midst of the coronavirus, all of you younger ones watching this will remember that Alzheimer's is still out there. It's still to be conquered. And remember, there's value in the people you know who are senior citizens and the people you have not yet met who are senior citizens. In the middle of the coronavirus, we have to continue on this interest in mental health. They're telling us that some people's mental health has been affected by the being shut in and shut down and their routine disturbed and all of that. I would hope, Nancy, that our society around the world, for that matter, would be very aware that mental health issues are still issues, and they may not be getting better. They may be getting worse. We don't want to forget that with the coronavirus. We also want to remember that we still have people struggling with cancer of all kinds. I don't mind reporting that in my head I'm still 45, but my body started reacting differently a number of years ago when I turned 80. I really didn't take any medication, and then I had a heart attack. I had what they call the Widowmaker. By the grace of God and His miracle working power, I didn't die. I'm still here for some reason, and I had a stent, and since then, 5 weeks later, a second stent, and now about a month ago, a third stent, and the doctor says I'm pumping good. I'm flowing good. Now, the pump, it's not operating like it should because the two chambers of the heart aren't speaking to each other. They kind of got off. It's good to be on speaking terms. Anyway, they're going to make my heart get back on speaking terms because I'm going to have a pacemaker. And I'll be glad to report it to you after it's done. And so I'm like an old John Deere tractor. Some of you guys old enough to remember or close to the farm, they were two-cylinder engines. We called them Poppin' Johnnies, the sound they made. Well, I've got two cylinders in the heart, and if one of them's missing a little bit, the old Poppin' Johnny doesn't work like it should. So they're going to do some rewiring and put that pacemaker in there. It's good for 15 years, and then they can replace it. I told him I only need about 2.5 of them. That'll get me where I'm going. But the heart is another. By the way, with all these tests, yesterday they did some blood work on me that involved even to rule out cancer as somewhere in my system that could be an underlying cause for other stuff. I don't think they'll find anything there. We'll keep you posted. I want you to know what it's like to become a senior citizen, because if you live long enough, you're going to be one. Cancer, heart, kidneys. Many years ago, Nancy, you will recall, I was the chairman of the Greene County Kidney Foundation. Now, to find the Kidney Foundation, you have to go all the way to St. Louis. And yet, Acts Ministry has helped someone qualify for and receive a kidney transplant. I'm so pleased that at least Acts Ministry hasn't forgotten autism, hasn't forgotten mental health, hasn't forgotten the handicapped, hasn't forgotten people who have a need for kidney treatment. In the middle of all this stuff about the coronavirus, not hearing anything about MS, multiple sclerosis, or ALS, which is alateral, something that's a Lou Gehrig disease. You're not hearing anything about MD, muscular dystrophy, and yet they're all still around. We're not hearing anything about. In fact, Nancy, we need to get an eye doctor on here. We've had a doctor of audiology,
right, yeah.
but we need to get an eye doctor on here, either an optometrist or an ophthalmologist. I'd like to have an ophthalmologist because they're the guys that take care of get the cataracts off and do eye surgery.
Maybe
and so
doctor, maybe my eye doctor.
Either yours or mine.
Yeah.
Mine not only is an ophthalmologist, but he served on the Springfield Board of Education for years, about 12 years, and then he served one term as a city councilman, and he's still a relatively young man. Maybe we can get him to come on. He'd have wide-ranging experience. Talking about eyes. Another issue that's a medical issue that we're not dealing with adequately in the middle of everything is obesity. And it's creating a lot of disease, taking a lot of lives. It is a major, major, major problem in the United States. We maybe aren't paying very much attention, a little bit, but not enough to our food supply. We were at the supermarket yesterday wearing our mask, and you had gloves on, and noticed a lot of vacancies on the shelves, lots of places. We also noted what looked like some price gouging when it came to toilet tissue. I mean, a few rolls of it was like $23 and something. I'd say something wrong with that picture, but a lot of vacancies on the shelves, and people are worried about somewhat about the food supply, but they're not as concerned right now about the quality. And I think in the middle of this coronavirus, we need to be thinking about how our food is grown, how it's processed, how it's canned, or how it's packaged, how it's frozen, whether it's vegetables or whether it's a meat product. We really need to be paying attention. I contend that we even need to be paying attention to the production of spice that's in little shaker bottles to make sure what we're getting when we purchase it and take it home, whatever it is. So, food supply. We maybe aren't as serious with this pandemic about education as we ought to be. Those who don't have children in school wasn't really a major concern of mine when they shut down the elementary schools or the high schools. And now college, a little bit different matter. We have a granddaughter who's a college student, but nonetheless, education shut down. As someone with enough training in that area to be semi-dangerous, I can tell you that education is built block upon block upon block upon block. And it needs to be a continual thing. And it's a serious matter when education is disrupted, not just interrupted, but disrupted. Follow what I'm saying?
Yep, I understand. But to me, there's something that you haven't brought up, and that could be for another program. But the thing of it is, there's a huge amount of information that is being changed, is not being included in the school books.
Right.
All the way from, I don't know where to, all the way up through college probably.
Well, let's do a special program on that from the perspective of people who can look back and say, this is the way it was and here's the way it is now. We'll do that.
Yeah.
In the meantime, in this whole scenario about the coronavirus and all the things I mentioned medically, I came across some interesting information about 2 days ago. 50% of all pharmaceuticals produced in the world, 50% of all pharmaceuticals produced in the world are consumed by citizens of the United States of America. Hear that again. 50%, that is half of all the pharmaceuticals, all the medicines produced in the world are consumed in the United States. And we only have 5% of the world's population. Matthew Dillon Pearson, how's that strike you? Isn't that something?
Yeah.
That's really something. Think about it. I mean, we've got all this medicine that we're consuming, and we are not the healthiest people on the globe. So it may have something to do with what we put in our bodies and what we don't put in our bodies. Anyway, I would like for the happy hour to be a time when you get some education, where you get some information, where you get some entertainment. I'm not ready to yodel. I've done all my yodeling for today. But maybe you find it semi-entertaining that some of us are still enthusiastic about life in spite of various things that go on. So I will say, when it comes to our ability on this program to provide a little bit of education, more education, don't overlook the problem that's created mentally and physically by this thing called stress. S-T-R-E-S-S. A lot of folks stress. I had some figures the other day, if I can find them here, excuse me, that I used on this show. See if I can bring them up again in my notes. Notebook full of notes. Okay, here they are. To show you that stress is it can be so much a part of the American scene. And it, by the way, stress creates bad cholesterol, and bad cholesterol is what clogs arteries. Yes.
Yeah, stress causes your body to release cortisol,
Uh-huh.
which causes the arteries to harden and causing plaque buildup in your arteries. That's where the high cholesterol comes from.
That's right. Now, one of the reasons why we have stress is money. And one of the reasons why money becomes a stressor is because too often we want a lot of stuff that we really don't need. Why do we want a lot of stuff? It's because we see somebody else has it, or they advertise it on TV, and we start, the word is covet, we start coveting. And as I pointed out on one of these broadcasts,
What's covet mean?
wanting what somebody else has, desiring it. And that's commandment number 10 of the 10 commandments. That's commandment number 10. And it's the one that, according to my neighbor, is very much overlooked. Most people learn about you don't steal, you don't commit adultery,
You don't kill.
you don't kill, this sort of thing. But they overlook, thou shalt not covet.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. So if we could just get our coveting under control, maybe we could get our budgets under control. I pointed out, now this was before the virus and before we had all kinds of people not working but shut at home and so forth. I pointed this out a few months ago on this broadcast. 57% of the adults in the United States can't write a check for $1,000. That's over half of the adults in America can't write a check for $1,000. 44%. Now that's a lot of folks. 44% of the adults, they can't write a check for $400. Think about that. 22%, now this was before the virus, 22% couldn't pay their monthly bills. They were running behind using credit cards. Back then, 40% of the people who graduated from college owed student loans. 40% of the college graduates in America had student loans, and they're huge, huge. It's like buying a house. I mean, huge loans. 50% of the workforce in the United States a few months ago, 50%, their income was less than $30,000 a year. Now, that's like saying less than $2,500 a month. I mean, we're getting down there where you're living pretty skimpy. But the credit card industry has really blossomed. Credit card companies were, and now it's even more, were earning $600 billion, that's with a B, $600 billion a year on fees.
I know, but credit's good, isn't it?
No.
Well, that's what it sounds like, credit.
Yeah, when they always say credit's good, well, it's not. 43% struggle to pay the minimum payment on their credit card. 43% that carry those plastic things around have trouble. 33% hate their jobs. 77% don't hate their jobs. They just don't like their jobs. 73% of the Americans die in debt. 73% die in debt. Now, way back when, there was like one credit card called the Diners Club. it was around a long time. But now, by and that was like in 1950. After that, credit cards started coming on. Now there are 20,000 different cards available. 90% of the people who have them don't pay them off. They just pay the minimum payment. And 49% of the American people don't have enough money on hand to cover 1 month of expense. This really showed up with the coronavirus. The government sent out $1,200 checks to a lot of people to help tide them over. 19% of the bankruptcies are college students. Back then, we had $4 trillion in consumer debt and $14 trillion, that's with a T, in student loans. So money, money, money is a stressor. That affects our health. That kind of stress can cause you to grow old younger. We have people who are chronologically young walking around in old bodies. Nancy, I don't know if we can maintain an audience talking about senior citizen matters and what it's like to get older or not, because a lot of people just don't want to hear about it. I know from my studies in psychology that years ago we were taught that there's a certain part of the brain that doesn't develop until you're about 22 years old, and it's called the risk factor. And that's the reason why we have so many teenagers who think they're basically bulletproof.
Well, they need to go in the military.
Well, that's one reason why in World War II they loved the 18-year-olds, for sure. But the risk factor, there's some things that only come with age, but we can look ahead. Some of you younger ones can look ahead to older people and begin to learn from their experience.
That's right.
Now, we're in this high-tech age, and technology can be a friend or it can be an enemy. It can be an enemy to your health if it keeps you from doing the things that you ought to do by way of the way you treat your body. It can be a friend if you use the technology to get information, how to take care of your health, and how to grow old the right way. Technology's become so predominant in American society that even older people operate computers. I want you to know that Nancy and I both carry these smartphones, which can be very dumb. The other day I was thinking about smartphones are really stupid phones. These phones make a lot of mistakes. But anyway, we have them. By my recliner in our family room, I have an iPad. So if something comes on TV and I want to look up the website, I just pick up my iPad and type it in. But right around the corner in our writing room, you have a computer on your desk, and I have two on mine. We are tuned into technology. Now, some of you younger ones are more tuned in than we are, obviously, and that's okay. We can learn from you, but you need to learn from us also. Nancy, I'm ready for Matthew Dillon Pearson to give us that second very promising update about the Acts Ministry and Acts Media Group telethon. Take it away, Matt.
Well, when we last left off, Dr. Paul, we had not yet got to Thursday, which would be June 4th, but we had talked about the Springburg Sandwich Saint competition.
All right.
I do want to let everybody know that it does not cost anything to enter these competitions.
Right.
But you do need to go on axmediagroup.com, copy and paste the entry, what do you call it? The
Entry form
entry
application.
form, telethon and raffle entry form. It's self-explanatory, and you can could probably snap a photo of it and email it to us, and we can print them out. So that way we know who's doing what, because we have limited slots on each show, of course. And then we will have raffle items on Friday, music memorials on Friday, meaning that all right, so there are 15 musical selections, and you donate a certain amount to hear this certain song.
Good.
Right? And that's on Thursday as well. And again, Friday we have the raffles, and all of these, dollar equals one vote. So, for example, if you pay $50, if you want to vote for two different things, if you want to vote for like the two different things on that one day, you put like let's say you donate $50, and you can put like 25 votes for such and such, 25 votes for such and such.
Right.
But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be packed with excitingness. I'm excited about the Sandwich Saint competition.
I am too. By the way, what's happening on June 5th?
June 5th. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Also, Friday, June 5th is the raffle. The raffle, it says 8 a.m. during the morning drive. Email your bid to 4321ax@gmail.com. The highest bid and bidder announced every 15 minutes, and the winner is announced at 10:30 a.m. Payment confirms via axmediagroup.com. Click on the donation PayPal button and put the amount for which item per lot number and description. We don't know exactly. You can go online to axmediagroup.com and read all this as well. You can also email your entry form, or you can email your entry form to 4321ax@gmail.com. You can also mail it to us at 1736 East Sunshine Suite 216 here at my office.
All right. I had an amusing thought.
Uh-oh.
Friday, June 5, is my birthday. Somebody ought to put up a big bunch of money just to have me give them a personal phone call. I mean, if they pay it, if they'll throw some money in the pot, I'll be glad to call them.
On the air. We can set that up. I've got Skype.
By the way, I think, too, it might be well to mention that Acts Ministry will reserve the right to reject certain songs, certain music,
Yes,
certain
absolutely.
certain recipes, whatever, because Acts Ministry is a faith-based organization,
Right.
and it is definitely family-oriented, and it is serving where needed, doing the right thing, and
Unity in Christ through the Holy Spirit.
unity in Christ through the Holy Spirit is the mission statement. Therefore, they reserve the right to reject entries that are not appropriate in any category.
And if you're doing part of the talent show, and you're doing stuff that's copywritten, we need express written permission from the person who holds that copyright.
That's right.
Broadcast.
Good deal. Now, all of this is the first week of June. Telethon, June 1 through June 5. You can remember it, June 1 to June 5, the birthday of old Dr. Paul. That ought to put it in the time capsule for him. Looking forward to that, seriously. Anyway, Matthew, thank you very much. Remember, 4321acts@gmail.com, or go to the website axmediagroup.com. Take a look at all of that. Now, Nancy, we have a few minutes, and I'm going back through my notes so that we can see where we are. I know that's going to be the last thing I do. We're talking about health, talking about being aware of other health issues and other things during the coronavirus. We left off talking about money, and so it's appropriate because this does figure in. Because of the coronavirus, people were allowed to delay the filing of income tax. We put ours in the mail a couple of days ago, and we also mailed off ahead of time reports to the IRS on the two nonprofits that you and I are responsible for. And so we got our paperwork all done. I hope those watching us and listening to us, if you don't have your paperwork done, get on it, because time's a wasting. You've had some time off, but it's really time to get back on it now. In the kingdom of man in the United States, the top 10% of the earners or the recipients of money pays 38% of the taxes. 10% of the top earners pay 38% of the taxes. 5% of the top earners pay 59% of the taxes. 10% of the top earners pay 70% of the taxes. 25% of the people who are working or have income in the United States pay 86% of the taxes. So we have a lot of folks who don't pay any. But if you're able to pay taxes, count it a blessing. Now, in the 1.5 minutes left, we will mention that we have people with health insurance, and this figures into the coronavirus. 56% of the people with health insurance, it's based on the company they work for. Companies have been disrupted because of the coronavirus. 16% get it through direct purchase, and budgets are tight. A lot of people probably dropped their insurance. A little over 17% are on Medicare, a little bit over 19% are on Medicaid, two different things. Almost 5% are on military insurance of some kind, but almost 9% have no insurance at all. And so during the coronavirus, I don't know, Nancy, by the way, in our emphasis upon senior citizens and their needs medically and otherwise, we are trying to get a nursing home administrator to be on the show to talk about what's happened with nursing homes and the coronavirus. And some of you have loved ones or friends in the nursing home, or who will be there perhaps. And then it will be very relevant to have one of our ophthalmologists on, because as you get older, you have eye situations. You get older, you'll have some cataracts maybe, all this kind of thing coming up. We're going to try to do that. Even though you're not senior citizen watching us, watch us anyway, because you need to learn about this large segment of our population that surrounds you who are known as senior citizens. And Nancy and I are senior citizens, blessed to be senior citizens.
Otherwise known as the well of knowledge.
That's right. Matt, one time I was on purpose, we were in a supermarket. I'd just turned 65, I think, and I was standing in the middle, blocking the aisle with my cart. Nancy came along, said, "What are you doing?" I said, I was looking around, I said, "I'm practicing codgerhood." So you have babyhood, you have adulthood, you live long enough, you get into codgerhood. Those beautiful, wonderful senior years. I hope everybody listening to me that you get to enjoy your senior years and help a senior around you enjoy theirs, and you enjoy yours if you're a senior citizen. And whatever you do as a senior citizen, don't mind it if somebody says you're elderly. If they live long enough, they'll become elders too.
That's
Respect
right.
your elders. Respect your elders.
That's right. And I hope if somebody was fussing at an elder, that when they get to be that age, that they remember what they said and what their mind and heart were saying at the same time.
How well I remember. You know, dear ones, I hope you have seen that we can be happy. It is the happy hour. And we have all these doctors we go to and all these medical appointments and all these meds we take and coming up to get a new wiring in my heart and a new motor to make it work. And we're still having a wonderfully good time. So don't ever hesitate to tell a friend to tune in to the happy hour. We've got the best deal in town. Nobody beats our deal. So,
I
Matt,
think that's a copywritten slogan.
and we can say this happy hour, what a place. And we can also say, well,
We were out of time like almost 5 minutes ago.
we're out of time 5 minutes ago. We'll see you next Friday. We surely will. Until then, not only stay well, stay safe, but as I like to tell you, stay blessed. Bye-bye.